Hi, I'm Emily Parrott, and I'm joined today by Jimmy Nguyen, the founding president of Bitcoin Association. So, Jimmy, just to start, can you tell us a little bit about the Bitcoin Association and what it does?
Sure. We are the global industry organization based out of Switzerland that advances Bitcoin SV. Bitcoin SV is one of the forms of Bitcoin that is the only one dedicated to follow the original protocol, design, and vision of Bitcoin's creator, Satoshi Nakamoto. So I lead our global team, and our association has members across the ecosystem of the industry, from digital currency exchanges, wallets, startup entrepreneurs, enterprises, the whole host of different companies that operate in our ecosystem.
And so, Jim, you are one of the leading advocates of Bitcoin SV. So, just for our viewers who might not be aware, what sets Bitcoin SV apart from the other digital currencies and blockchains?
Sure. There's been a long period of debate in the Bitcoin and digital currency world about a key question, which is whether Bitcoin and blockchain technology should scale big. So if we go back for people who are less familiar with the Bitcoin world, I'll just give a brief little overview and education of Bitcoin's history. Bitcoin first emerged into the world in 2008 with the publication of the famed white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto, which described Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So what that meant is that I should be able to send you anywhere in the world. You're in London now, I'm in the United States, peer-to-peer, person-to-person, electronic cash really fast for super cheap fees and instantly, very easily. That's what it should be. And then when the Bitcoin blockchain started in 2009, it started to get attention. And over time, there became these debates about whether the scale of the blockchain should be allowed to grow or not. And unfortunately, on the BTC network, the protocol developers who took control of it decided to keep the capacity small. So it only processes about 7 transactions per second on the chain. That would be like starting the internet in the early days and saying we could only do 7 emails per second across the internet worldwide. Email never would have grown, right? You and I wouldn't be emailing, on a daily basis. And that led to debates in the Bitcoin community and also the emergence of many other competing blockchain projects. So today we have well over 5,000 different cryptocurrencies or well over 100 blockchain projects. That's just too many in our view. Our view is there should just be one dominant digital currency for the world and one global blockchain on which we all operate, just like we operate on a single internet. Everything's much easier. So that's the vision of Bitcoin SV, is to restore what Satoshi envisioned, and that's what the SV stands for, Satoshi Vision. And that means taking the Bitcoin original design and protocol that was birthed in 2009 and scaling it really big so that our blockchain can handle huge amounts of transactions very fast for cheap fees. So our network has what we call unbounded scale, meaning it can grow to as big as the market demands. So we're comfortably doing 2,800 transactions a second on our network, far more than on the BTC network. Ethereum's running into scaling problems. We hear about that in the crypto news a lot. And that's nowhere still near fast enough to rival Visa and MasterCard as payment networks, which do 2,000 to sometimes 50 to 60,000 transactions a second. But by next year, we think our network will get to 50,000 transactions a second, and in the future, get to millions, so that it is more than just a payment system, but the data network for the world. Because when I send a Bitcoin transaction to you, I'm just sending data. And our protocol can then be used for the Bitcoin blockchain to be the world's data network that fuses data and money together. Bit plus coin. That's really just what Bitcoin is. It's sending data to which we attach money value. And because we're scaling so big, it's really, really cheap to send transactions on our network. It costs less than 1/100th of 1 US cent to send a Bitcoin SV transaction anywhere in the world instantly. And so that opens up a whole world of business opportunities and restores the vision of Bitcoin to be able to be used for really cheap, fast electronic transactions. And so that's the big difference between our vision and all the others. We don't believe in a world of 5,000 cryptocurrencies. It's too confusing to the world. Wouldn't it be better for the world, including in Africa, if there was just one dominant one?
Yeah, definitely. So, on the topic of Africa, obviously this is the head of Africa Tech Festival. So why is Bitcoin SV well suited to technology innovation, I guess across Africa specifically?
Well, Africa and all of the developing countries across the world are in need of better financial services and infrastructure. You know, we're fortunate. We live in countries such as the United Kingdom for you, the United States for me, with very sophisticated banking and payments infrastructure. We don't have to worry about the difficulties of sending money or paying for things on the internet because we have bank accounts and credit cards. But in developing territories, not just Africa, the Philippines is another good example. In the Philippines, 85% of people do not have bank accounts. The same is true for a lot of the countries in Africa. Large portions of the population are unbanked. So that means Bitcoin, if it's allowed to scale, like we're doing with Bitcoin SV, to act as a ledger for very low fee transactions, can give consumers who do not have bank accounts, who do not have credit cards, access to much more financial services, the ability to pay for things, just to do e-commerce, right? If you don't have a credit card, it's very difficult to go shop on Amazon, right? Or if you don't have a bank account, it's hard to fund a PayPal account. And so with just a mobile wallet and mobile apps that use Bitcoin SV, you can open up a whole world of fintech innovations to allow it to be easier for people to pay for everything from their daily grocery stores to run small businesses, even if you're a street vendor needing to buy new supplies, but needing to have the money come in quickly enough so that you can buy new supplies to sell. That's all made much easier in a world of Bitcoin technology that doesn't require the traditional banking, credit card payment services. It also can be done much more efficiently. You know, credit card payments we don't see made for small amounts because there's a base credit card fee of, in the US, typically, 30 US cents at the minimum, plus, somewhere from 2 to sometimes 5% of the payment amount as a transaction fee. So it doesn't allow for small micropayments. And Bitcoin SV at scale, if it only costs 1/100th of a US cent to send a payment, you can send 5 cents, 10 pence, 1 pence, right? And it changes the game. And so that's why it's really useful for developing countries where you have large unbanked populations and the need to support small micro businesses.
Yeah, I guess, do you have any examples of, you talk about like micro businesses, but examples of how it's really kind of changed the way finance and banking's done in Africa, any specific countries, or just across the continent?
I think it's just starting. And the answer is Bitcoin SV only emerged about less than 2 years ago, November 2018, after fights in the Bitcoin SV and Bitcoin world. And so we are ramping up what should have happened years ago. Bitcoin essentially got delayed in its journey. It's over 10 years old, but we don't see it used widely. And the reason is on the old Bitcoin network, BTC, the transactions are slower. They only do 7 transactions a second. So the fee is high. So for example, I just checked this past weekend and the average fee to send a BTC transaction is over $3 US. That's far too high for a payment network, and especially in developing, territories, whereas we're 1/100th of a US cent. So I think the impact has not been truly felt yet, but where we're starting to feel it, for example, is in South Africa. There's a company in the Bitcoin SV world called CentBee, like the little insect bee, and it runs a Bitcoin mobile wallet for Bitcoin SV. So you can have Bitcoin SV, you can buy and top up through the wallet, including at merchants, and I can send to anyone, anywhere in the world. But they've launched some additional services, such as, for example, the ability to pay for digital services and non-digital services through the wallet, such as you can pay for electricity, airtime from your mobile phone. You can top up airtime in the mobile phone, which you and I do with carrier subscriptions. But in developing countries, those are often not, economically viable for a lot of people. They can pay for things such as Uber and Google Play Store app functions using Bitcoin SV because it's so much cheaper. They've also launched a remittance service called Minute Money, which allows you to send money in less than a minute through a mobile app because the ledger of Bitcoin SV is so fast and cheap. It uses that as the base ledger to send international remittance, which normally can cost a lot of money. When people are sending money back to their friends and family in another country, it can cost 6 to 8% of the transaction amount sometimes to send. If you're for example, traveling from one country to another, and you're working in another country, sending money back to your family, it can be very expensive. But for their service, because Bitcoin SV is so cheap to use, they only charge 50 South African Rand, which is about $3 to send any amount of money. Right now, they're operating between South Africa and Nigeria. And there are limits on how much you can send in a given month. But you can send money, fiat currency, directly to someone's bank account, and they process it as a Bitcoin SV transaction, but it ends up in someone's bank account. So I can send from my bank account to your bank account between South Africa and Nigeria for 50 South African Rand, which is very, very efficient. And it happens instantly. You don't have to wait for the transaction to clear for days, for example, before your relative or your friend can get the money. So that's some great examples of how, at least in those parts of Africa, this Bitcoin SV vision is starting.
Yeah, and kind of on the same lines of the kind of Bitcoin vision, you're kind of looking to kind of have use cases beyond payments, like Bitcoin SV does seek to open up blockchain use cases, and so I guess there's a big question around data, and why is the data protocol so important?
Right, and I think that is a great question, because it does what I ask people to do, is open their mind to a bigger vision for Bitcoin. People think Bitcoin is just about a new form of money because it's how it was introduced to the world. But if you understand Bitcoin more deeply, what it really is just a protocol for a data network. Just like Internet Protocol is the protocol for managing the communication of data between devices that power our whole internet. So that's really all the Bitcoin network is. It is a way for devices to communicate across a Bitcoin data protocol, in which you can transfer data that represents money value, but you can transfer and record other types of data. I could, for example, there are applications in our world where you could upload an image and can charge people for access to the image. You can upload video files. I can transmit healthcare data. There's a company in the US that's creating a global electronic healthcare record system to more efficiently manage people's healthcare data and allow you to be more of a consumer and have control over your own medical data, which is very difficult to do in today's healthcare data systems. So that's what the Bitcoin network is. And once you understand that, and understand that you can have a global network where anyone can access the data at any given time, so it's transparent, it's auditable, you can verify the history of data transactions. This opens up a lot of possibilities. So for example, there's a company that in our world that's starting to develop a peer-to-peer micro-lending service to allow people to lend small amounts of money and automatically repay in small amounts at a much lower interest rate than you could do otherwise. People are developing Internet of Things, device communications and data management, where you take data from an IoT device and stream it to the Bitcoin SV blockchain, and then allow people to access that data later for management of, let's say, smart communities, recording. There's a company in Australia that's testing out to record data from trees as part of ecological and environmental testing, and create almost new markets for carbon dioxide and carbon credits, right? Because you can record what's going on with trees in a particular setting. And there's a company that's recording weather data and creating a data marketplace for weather. So in Africa, I think there's so many possibilities for this use. You can record, for example, property title. There's a company exploring making property title registries more efficient and open on a Bitcoin blockchain, because in many countries in Africa, people don't even have proof that they own property, right? Because the record keeping system is so outdated. It's a bunch of paper in someone's office. But if you move record keeping to a digital blockchain, and you can more quickly track the history of a transfer of title, supply chain management can be improved because you can track across the delivery of products, where they've been in a supply chain, the source of origin of food, the ability to meet environmental sustainability goals, because you can track where products have been across the supply chain. So I think that data uses of Bitcoin SV at a big scale are really tremendous. And they can also promote more honesty because everyone's looking at the same data source, one global ledger. This is really helpful for governments as well. It's not just private enterprise. Think about how you could better track voting on a blockchain, not who you vote for, but the fact that people voted. And to fight, corruption in elections, right, and to better incentivize voting. Governments could run central bank digital currencies. That's a big topic. Banks want to create their own digital currencies for governments. We think that could all be done on the Bitcoin SV ledger, and everyone can have more access to what the money supply is, right? Because people always question, what really is the money supply. So the variety of use cases that can benefit regions such as Africa are truly immense. And I think, you can open your mind to the power of it when you think of Bitcoin as just data sent around the world, but which you can attach money value so that when the data is on the blockchain, people can then charge to access the data. People can give away the data for free. It opens up a lot of new business models.
Yeah, so just a quick question before we kind of begin to wrap up, but just in terms of the regions of Africa, considering data and connectivity and the issues around that in itself, which regions do you think are responding most positively to kind of Bitcoin SV and the kind of the ecosystem outside of South Africa, and where do you potentially see the most potential in the next few years, maybe 2 to 5 years?
I think definitely, the entire sub-Saharan Africa market, which is a very large region, are the best opportunities for immediate growth of Bitcoin SV. I think we are still early in the growth of the technology and getting people to understand it. I think sort of the immediate interest is coming in South Africa, Nigeria, Namibia, and some of those surrounding countries. And so we need to start doing a lot more of our work, such as with the Africa Tech Festival, to educate people. In fact, the last time I actually got to travel to Africa was for the Transform Africa Summit in 2018 in Rwanda, in Kigali. And that was a good opportunity to introduce people to our vision for Bitcoin. But it's going to take a lot more effort. But I think it'll start probably from the very south part of Africa and move further north across time. And part of it is getting entrepreneurs and businesses interested and excited about the power of the technology to create a more honest, transparent world where consumers and businesses have more power and control over their data as well as their money.
I love that about honesty and transparency with data. I think that's such an important thing, especially with a technology like Bitcoin to so many people. It's so new. So I guess I just kind of to wrap up, what message or kind of what would you want our audience to know about Bitcoin technology and kind of the potential for it? I just be really interested to get that from them.
If I could leave your audience with one big message, is to have this bigger vision for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is more than just a new form of money. It is the protocol and system for an entire data network and ledger that can work with the internet and power all kinds of applications, from tokens, smart contracts, management of Internet of Things devices, and ultimately manage and monetize all of the little digital interactions of our life on a daily basis, which may sound scary, but opens up a lot of opportunities to achieve what I call a world where everything can be on chain, just like everything operates today on the internet online. We view Bitcoin in the form of Bitcoin SV as having the capability to grow to support an on-chain world for regions such as Africa that are looking for new industries, economies to help leapfrog them, further into the world economy. Blockchain technology and Bitcoin SV is in particular is very well suited for that. With creative developers and entrepreneurs, you can make a really big impact quickly and really transform things for an entire region, particularly in one that's very interested in digital transformation as Africa is. So that's the message I would leave, which is Bitcoin much more than money. It's an entire data network that can make the whole world on chain, just like we are online today with the internet.
Great, thank you so much. Really enjoyed speaking with you, really appreciate it. And obviously anybody watching, if you sign up for Virtual Africa Tech Festival, you can learn more about their work, you can chat with their team, go visit their booths, so make sure you register if you haven't yet. But Jimmy, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. And yeah, look forward to seeing you online for Virtual Africa Tech Festival very soon.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it as well.